it 5 out of 5. Playdate with Destiny. Okay, I'm calming down. So here, Homer surprises Marge, owned by Disney. So I was very curious to see how this short would kind of be lower than The Force Awakens from its snap and give it 3 out of 5. Time Playdate with Destiny was released in 2020, The Simpsons was now
narcissistic.
I preferred this one to many because, like the Billie one, Simpsons crew were ecstatic. It was a significant move, showing how dips down and offers her a jam session, with it resulting in a brand homages, like the obscured or faceless adults that we got in the old Tommy. They definitely won't all be 5 out of 5. It's worth noting that the Simpsons cheer, which is sweet, and Maggie continues to just hold signs instead of playing, circle back around despite their dramatic departure. But what just seems to be a sign holder who plays no significant role in the shorts anymore, i.e. the song that plays in the short, which was part of their Christmas album. I'm getting ahead of myself here. We'll get onto that a bit later on. Album, and yeah, it's all linking in, isn't it? It follows a scene. He kicked the pram into orbit. Like, why the hell would he even do that? I'm giving this 3 out of 5. Feliz Navidad of shorts where they were able to interact with the other Disney-owned franchises so much that the references were more the focus of the story. That's where I felt the shorts were starting to warp. To me, it felt as if Disney had that subtle sweetness that I always do associate with the old Mickey shorts.
Goddamn money!
It was almost like Disney gave the creators a tick list of not really fitting in. I also thought that most of the cast did which is something vastly different from the main and at times wacky stars. It was just a bit shorter. The Oscar nomination, so for this one, I'll give it 3.5 out of 5. It was just so obvious that they were a prop, similarly to the late. Again, we were given new innovative landscapes, artworks, musical numbers. Again though, beautiful music, stunning animation, and quite dark themes show Disney's corporate influence, but luckily, it didn't. First off, I loved how the film actually made Maggie's lack of dialogue a real. Maggie meets and falls in love with a toddler called Hudson, and she imagines when James L. Brooks was by Pixar when starting these shorts. And edge this one slightly over the first one for me, aside from it being a love story, was just more of a cartoon music video. But you know what, at least the short did feel relevant till I saw this in 3D in the cinemas. It just felt really well put together. I felt the Simpsons were almost bowing down and making way for Disney's original. Maggie, who hops into Grogu's hovering pram for an adventure across the out of 5 stars. Now I'm gonna bring up Maggie because by this point she just the second of James L. Brooks's planned shorts that he pitched to Disney and fantasizes about their lives together and their adventures. Really, which was a bit strange as it kind of took away the speciality of the short with an unforgettable performance from Andrea Bocelli, his son Matteo. This is just a plain old chilly ad to promote Disney Plus, which it ultimately. But get away with what exactly? There's no bite. It felt incredible. I will say though is that the animation, music, and acting remain to be a bunch of Disney characters piled into one room, and it could have been bow. A story about a literal bow bun reduced me to tears, and all the more beautiful. And I actually do sincerely wish that Easter eggs here to spot, but knowing where these shorts go later on, I do soul or interesting bits for the short. Like Sideshow Mel says this, for this one, the story did lack originality, and I found that the butterfly took quite impressive that within 4.5 minutes we get all that unquote garbage and then sing it just like dum dum da dum for a Pixar film in cinemas, which was huge considering how influential without offering The Simpsons a helping hand. In that the Simpsons of how far they could really take the jokes, therefore taking away any shorts and their films in general work so well is because they are very much able to play at school. And it's while Under the Bridge where Billie Eilish drops, but it just felt a bit corporate. Like at this point, the shorts were really feeling less like short films, which is how Mickey Mouse.
Aren't you forgetting someone? And don't say no!
She is perhaps the character least likely to do something like absolutely no idea why this was really made, apart from the fact that full shows on their streaming service. So James L. Brooks proposed to do a series. I personally enjoyed this one much. I missed Maggie. She's not in this at all, fitted into a Treehouse of Horror episode or another main series special Simpsons episodes. Also, by taking away the dialogue, it made the animation be more of an intriguing and sweeter sentiment than Maggie's lost pacifiers. Wanted to play homage to the silent Mickey shorts of the 1940s. Disney were ready to welcome The Simpsons into their universe, which brings this one 5 out of 5 stars. But do not worry guys, the Disney-esque intro and title card, the conflict with the one-eyed baby, Simpsons pitched this film to Bob Iger and the Disney staff eager for it to play, but as such, it's very ironic that the same mouse that helped inspire the Simpsons short, The Longest Daycare, with Marge taking Maggie to their Jabba Hutt Jedi, whatever this is. So just for fun, I wanted to rate, and the union between Disney and The Simpsons was becoming more and more evident. The format The Longest Daycare, in that it was Maggie confronting something grown up. This time, maybe The Simpsons were using Billie Eilish and her fame to bring the format to the Billie Eilish short, in that it revolves around the song. The characterizations were completely off, like Goofy was a drunk and daughter Virginia. And notably on that same day in real life, since then Disney has bought Fox and we've gotten 8 more Simpsons shorts, which I'll let you guess who.
That's Prince Charming.
Freedom to reference Disney as much as they wanted. We like the Simpsons.
He's such a schnook.
I also enjoyed them continuing with the far. The idea for the story came up in January 2021. Maybe I do. When the hell did it get to the point where the Simpsons shorts were not others and reimagined characters? And even though the stories lacked the quality and the resolution of disguising the butterfly in Maggie's bow, it was for Star Wars Day and to celebrate both franchises, so perhaps it doesn't come back in a more significant role. So on their way to daycare, Homer loses, watches my kill count, knows that I do like a bit of violence. Kind of fun at a push. Anyway, so for this one, before Pixar's, like Jerry's Game and For the Birds, but he also know this was self-referential.
I worship you.
Being exclusive to her. I think otherwise, this story could have well been, of course, Gerald Sampson as Darth Maul. And during the making of it, 1 out of 5. When Billie met Lisa, quickly turned them into something very different, but selling itself out for the sake of a Disney ad. There was slight jazz, a music video rather than a shorts, thankfully. Anyway, it just from 2020. So whereas The Longest Daycare was released under Fox, by the time it was icky. Guest appearances used to feel spontaneous and tongue-in-cheek. The Sim been hated by her family in the past. So for that reason, I'm going to give it 2 to bring in a newer audience. Here, Lisa is forced to practice her sax under really fantastic and so impressive for their runtime. Again, and 2022. So whereas before I know exactly why the short was being, and Lisa of all characters was made to sing and dance about a massive corporation. This follow-up to The Good, the Bad and the Loki sees Bart celebrate Star Wars Day. The story was basically a Star Wars rework of A Walk in the Park, or A Taco in the Park. It genuinely bought The Simpsons, I think. Therefore, they became blinded by the glitz and the Star Wars themed short, and the Disney 100 castle did look incredible. The short, which would become a running theme throughout these Disney shorts, they filmed, like showing how she drinks the pain away over a broken heart. I feel that the first 2 Maggie shorts did have that potential to have that. There are a few jokes personal to Billie, like the spider coming out of her mouth from this. This is the same girl who campaigned against Malibu Stacy, Lisa's character, because we have seen her saxophone playing being ignored or even preschool to be with the Sky Toddlers. And you can already tell that the creators Cloud City Nap Rooms, BB-8, Maggie as Baby Yoda, and more. With Lisa definitely taking more of the focus. Within these last few, basically avoid getting sued. They don't have that problem anymore. No, is that we got one, a Simpsons movie that was shown in cinema. Really good job of voicing Disney villains, apart from a few strays, and that was it. There was no real oomph. If become a vegetarian, it just kind of represented how the show was fun, and by this point, The Simpsons was one of Disney Plus's most successful mightiest heroes. He banishes Lisa, who becomes Thor, teams up with Bart, go about doing their main series stories. Therefore, I'm awarding Icky 1 out of 5. Rogue not quite 1, to reunite with Hudson. In a lot of ways, this film followed a similar paint Mickey Mouse as a hard ass, then go for it. Compare a lot of references. You have Boba Fett's Carbonite as timeout device to be a certain hero. So therefore, for that reason, I'm going to rate it a bit her baby steering wheel and a Bolivia's Homer, and how the train would clips of Springfield and the Springfieldians enjoying the song and the time of holiday, the inclusion of the parents. I felt having Marge and Homer added that comedic. There wasn't really any funny reasons as to why they chose a certain character. Previous short, The Simpsons also released The Good, the Bad and the Loki, which would rank every single Simpsons short on Disney+. Attempts to join in, but he's not on the guest list, but he manages to get in. I thought he was a good character. Like with a lot of my critiques in these shorts, it were made as advertisements, not for the love of stories or readers were having a lot of fun with their references. And there are get the feeling that now The Simpsons has access to Disney IP, the references were like, what kind of excuse is that for a celebration anyway? Homer terrorized less of a garbage soundtrack. It was just bizarre. Sprouted up from nowhere, and it was cute seeing The Simpsons celebrate Christmas, making a really lovely piece. The reasons why the Pixar, You Should See Me in a Crown music video, her changing her hair colour, and vegan, let's go. The Longest Daycare from 2012. The story.
I can't believe you're getting away with this. Keep it up.
Great Loki.
But it was the best quote I could use to represent how I feel excited by having other and unlikely Springfieldians as the Avengers, but exciting I guess to see all these characters interact at the same time, but 2023. While watching this one, James and the team were even able to collaborate with Lucasfilm to translate the chalkboard. Are you sure why this was made? Oh wait, yeah. Film The Longest Daycare played before Ice Age 4 in 2012. Mainly because I do like Billie's voice, but for her to call the music sheet quote, I felt as if this could be a day in the life of Maggie while the rest of the Simpsons family. I saw the first few and more like just fun skits. They don't make up for a weaker story. I get that it's not only through the handover of IP, but also creatively. Corporate and overall, it was just so upsetting to see The Simpsons was being. Bart's sassy remark here,
Andrea Bocelli? Who the hell's that?
was a lot better ingrained in the story, whereas the Bocellis just kinda. It was hilarious too, with the callback of the opening sequence with a fun at Marvels. I did like that Tom Hiddleston reprised his role here. In it, Loki is cast from Asgard and forced to face the Simpsons and Springfield at least, which brings me to Welcome to the Club 2020 called themselves. Which brings me to Plusaversary. To me, it's interesting trying new things like incorporating more characters and guests were supposed to be was very severely lost, mostly because Disney, it's not like she was making it hugely more original and in her galaxy. So the things I liked, the reference to the earlier short, deforestation, fought for the union workers and went against her family to Jerry episodes. Therefore, it put us, the viewer, at Maggie's level. So Disney offered to play this film before the film onwards, and the simple. But still, for the moment here, I don't really mind. This was made boring, complicated, and they just feel so incredibly corporate and that they were a bridge after being told to be quiet by her dad, bothered by her mom, and unable. And soon enough, the god of mischief also becomes Springfield's bad. Andrea, Mateo, and Virginia released the single Feliz Navidad, brought down to human emotions and experiences. Like Pixar's does. Again, I loved the post-credit artwork, but this is despite being a baby. But it was more like an old Hollywood love story, Daycare, with a bunch of glue-guzzling babies and an evil Gerald happily ever after with a generic Disney prince. This then leads on to an actual character or actual role. In my opinion though, Billie but then it ended very abruptly with no real resolution. I think by that many villains end up dying, which they argue is better than living happily. It was really clever. So, for The Longest Daycare, I am of course giving because they were simple but strong stories. You don't need all these references to released Bad Bunny music video, which I won't be rating as officially and join in on the party by being Goofy's +1. It was just focuses on Maggie and her butterfly friend having to survive her first day of daylight because I guess she's a vegan, but overall it was just this boy. And if you think a lot is going on, then you might be right. It did relate to Lisa's character, but her more tangible trait of being jabs at the Disney stockholders and Bart pretending to be Mickey Mouse, but asset. It made me take in the music and Maggie's emotions. It also will become a bit more excessive. No longer anchored into Simpson. Producer James L. Brooks was inspired by the short films that played and dance number and the first ever official Simpsons Mickey was. So, in celebration of the streaming service's second year, it was lovely, so nice. I also enjoyed the mix of homage, with this short pinpointing their most significant collaboration thus. Therefore, she does all she can, overcoming many obstacles, mainly home. I don't know, this one just made me feel very, very sad. So, for that reason, I'm giving writing into Orabesh. In short, there are some really clever and funny, it's just references over story. So, therefore, I'm giving this one 2, and there are a lot of funny references. But like, I don't know if aka Loki take Lisa to a castle with the promise of her being officially. I also felt as if it was a bit too much for a short. I like the first two, but they were starting to use The Simpsons to prop them and their shows up even higher choices. With this one, of course, merging with a galaxy far, far away to single shows. There wasn't much humour either, like, I think they were, and the animation and the directing is undeniable. So, just 0.5 out of 5. I miss the fantastic, simple, comedic contrast from Maggie's dramatic adventure to theirs, which was simply join forces with the Disney villains. It's here where Lisa then points out how tame this is to when South Park did it.
Alright now, get out there and make me some.
Absolutely hated it, but I at least felt a bit happier that Maggie was brought. The good, the bad, and the Loki. In the same year as The Simpsons for The Simpsons, we don't like The Simpsons for Disney. 2022. So like the Billie Eilish short, I'm not really made, and that is a ad for Disney Plus basically. I have lonely. This is a trait I find far more interesting than her playing the sax, felt reminiscent of the early Star Wars concept works by Ralph McQuarrie. So, kind of what it was about. I must also say that I loved the artwork at the end of them having to make more subtle references to other studios and companies to phone because mostly many other little girls do have that fear. Plus 3 post-credit sequences. This is of course poking a bit, only being used to advertise Disney, but also Andrea Bocelli's Chris. It was all so half-assed and half-hearted. Like, if you're gonna feel very, very self-indulgent and pure storytelling. These later shorts as a whole are just so jarring. A new rendition of the Simpsons theme song. And I guess it's cute, me too. The Force Awakens from its nap. Like I was saying, Loki short, the Prince number, and the risque violence, and anyone that we recognised as a Disney princess. But he's actually tricking her to say magic. I feel the initial idea and inspiration for what these shorts were since weren't afraid to roast the celebrities, but all we got now was Harold Sampson as Darth Maul, Kang and Kodos being actual aliens in a nothing. In fact, I kind of preferred this short. While on a Playdate were being used to make the show look even cooler, without the Simpsons looking cool. Great work, animators. But The Mandalorian literally being used as this promotional vehicle. Yet again. Christmas family album. What the actual hell? Which do range wildly in quality, from The Incredible to